We are here in the home of Johannes Tysvaer here in Nautilus, and Johannes has an impressive skill set that he has been applying since the 1990s, carving wood and doing amazing carvings. And this style that you carve in, Johannes, I remember we did a story a few years back, and you talked about that style. What was the name of that?
Acanthus.
The acanthus style.
Acanthus carving.
And what got you interested in that?
That's a carving they do a lot in Norway. Carving. They make all kinds of cups and
all kinds of things.
All kinds of
and
things.
you've made all kinds of things using it.
Some of them, yeah.
And this most recent work that you have just finished is a beautiful nativity scene. How long have you been working on that, Johannes?
I started before Thanksgiving last year.
Thanksgiving last year. The better part of a year you've been working on this, and it really is beautiful. So tell me, why did you decide to do a nativity scene?
I haven't seen any others like this.
Okay.
So I figured, let me do something that nobody else does.
Good idea. Well, as I mentioned, we did a piece on Johannes a few years ago about his carving. Let's take a look at that right now.
Before I retired, I was working as a carpenter in New York City most of the time. All kinds of things, up in the skyscraper, up on the bridges and on the piers and everywhere. I went to school when I was 16, and we did work a little bit in the shop there, and then I did some carving. But so I forgot it into in the 90s. I started doing it. I started out making some elephants and the doves, and this is one of my first carvings. And the teacher said he's going to make 2 bookends. He said, no, I'm going to make 2 horses. So he said, it's hard to do. I said, I didn't know that. So that's how that was made. There's an elephant. When I took it home and my grandson saw it, he said, Grandpa, that's an elephant. That's the best compliment I ever had, I think. But then I went to a carving course. There I was introduced to this kind of carving. It's often used in cathedrals and churches, a lot of different, and it's beautiful. And it is even on your dollar bill, in the back of your dollar bill. There's a lot of acanthus carving there too. The acanthus carving is done by hand tools. You only use hand tools, sharp hand tools. You get them sharp as you can. And the technique is all in your wrist. You just turn your wrist, and you get it perfect every time. You go first over at one time, and then you go over it again, and because you don't know how deep you're going to go at different places. A 1/16 of an inch can make a difference in the appearance. So sometimes not easy to do, because if you have many layers on top of each other, like I have in the mirror, there's 3 or 4 layers on top of each other, of course. But otherwise, it is all in the wrist. Basswood is the one I use the most. Pretty stable. There's no grain in it, hardly any grain, so you can carve both ways, and it's a good carving wood. And if the wood is harvested in the winter time, it's better. Then there's no sap in the wood, but sometimes you will just have to take what you get. And all of these different curves and everything got to come out. And it is not easy to do when it's so small. You use smaller tools. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. Well, I always like to have a fireplace, so I made this drawing on the fireplace, and when I hear about the snow up north, I put the fireplace on just to show them some support. Fireplace bellow. So they work pretty good. And I made some of them to my children and some of my friends. My uncle made that picture we happened to buy in Norway, and we liked it so much, but the frame was bad, so I made another frame. These chairs I made from a walnut tree I had in my backyard in New York, and I cut that out with a chainsaw, and I made it 2 chairs of it. And it's hard to carve, so I put the salmon in the weed, swimming in the weed here. So these are 2 different spoons. So when somebody comes and visits me, that's big talkers. That's the one they get to eat with. And that's a cuckoo clock. The birds come out here every hour. On this particular one, I have a quartz clock in here, and that's more stable than that one from the Black Forest in Germany. And these are just made. That's the decoration. This board is called a mangler board, and they used it in olden times for when they're going to iron sheets, and by the friction forth and back, that was enough to iron sheets, because they didn't have electric. So, and another thing they used it for is if somebody wanted to marry a girl, and if she didn't accept it, that was a no. That is from the drawing is from 1894. That one. There's different shape of people in there and things. This mirror is made in a canthus carving, and it is it's quite complicated, but it took me a long time to do it. And the drawing from this I get from Europe. I did this because I just wanted to do it. I didn't know how much work there was involved, but off and on over a year. This one was in the best of show, first prize ribbon, the Southwest Florida Woodcarver Show. When you make a carving like this, there's a lot of people that wanted to buy it, but it's not for sale. It is like one of your arm or your hand or something. It becomes a part of you after a while.
As you can see, Johannes is a busy guy, and not only has he finished this Nativity since the last time we made that piece, he's got a few other things here that are new. This beautiful Ascension. He's got one here called Pleasure Ride of a couple on a buggy ride, and a whimsical couple of kids in a tree that's a candle holder. So Johannes, looks like you've been having a lot of fun carving.
Sometimes I have a lot of nice people over there.
Well, I'm sure your carvings bring a lot of pleasure to your family and your friends, and obviously you enjoy having it around. It's all here in your apartment too, so.
A lot of people come and look at it, and it's good for Shell Point too.
Yeah, a lot of fun for everybody. All right, well, Shell Point, sometime if you'd like to see what Johannes has here, I'm sure he'd welcome you in to take a look at his little museum of carving here, tell you about what he does, or maybe you'll see him over at the wood shop if you want to try your hand at a little bit of woodworking. So many wonderful things to do at Shell Point. And who knew that wood carving would be such a intricate and wonderful thing that is happening here at Shell Point. So, thanks for showing us, Johannes.
Oh, that's my pleasure.